we deliver accomplished.
As evidenced by the fact that we have a large selection of candidates that are running for this election. 7 people seeking 3 seats. This is rather unusual. So it's an indication that people are interested in quality education. The students are also becoming involved. And they are being remotivated, especially through a project team. There's also another thing that's very important, and that's the reactivation of the administrative council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. Let's turn now to Cheryl Holly.
I believe our children deserve a healthier and happier atmosphere in which to live and to learn. I am willing to work for that, and I'm willing to fight for that. It is time we all responded to the real hunger within our community. We all, rich or poor, have a yearning for the return of stable values. We as adults have the responsibility of teaching our children how to live and how to make a living. People can march themselves blue in the face, and the basic fact remains. True quality education cannot be bought or sold, and true dedication is not for sale. It's time to pull our act together.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl Holly, and let's turn now to Tim Parsons.
I welcome the opportunity to speak last. We just need the opportunity to listen and learn from the other candidates. That is the way I expect to act on the board, to listen and to learn before making any serious decisions. Education is the most important thing that can happen to an individual in life. It governs where you will go to school, where you go to college, where you will go to work, sometimes where you will live, and who you may marry. It's very important that the children of our community have the opportunity to take full advantage of all of the opportunities that we will be able to present to them. As a member of the board, I would like to enrich the opportunities available to the children by assisting in allowing the administration to perform their function, to operate the
Time's up. Thank you very much, Tim Parsons. The incumbents out of Orlando could not be with us tonight. Those are opening statements. Let's turn now to the main section of tonight's program, and that will be questions from the media. Let's start with Dave Gordon of the Tri-State Gazette. The first question to be directed to Curtis Bronson.
Okay, Kurt. I recall in a statement that you had read to you at a previous meeting, you mentioned that you feel that growth projections are going to be greater than the board has estimated so far, and do you feel that the plans that are being made for building adequately reflect what the needs of the district are going to be?
Well, I'm not entirely sure whether the plans are adequate, but I think we should have a little more time to be able to study what we think the potential growth is in the area before we make final decisions on what we're going to build. I'd hate to get us into a situation 4 or 5 years down the road where we're again short of classroom space and have to spend additional large quantities of money for new buildings.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And now if we'll go through, Bob, would you like to add to that?
It's very difficult at this stage to make any determination as to whether or not the plans that have been developed are adequate for our school district. One would certainly hope that the administration and the planning and the school board has taken the time to develop the plans that would be sufficient for the upcoming years. I see only one problem, and that is that the planning is taking too long, and I think we've got too many problems to resolve.
Okay. Thank you, Bob Habig. Mike Sullivan?
I think the issue can be readily understood in the context of normal business. There's a number of publications and all types of literature and demographics that would suggest that we're going to be growing at a very rapid rate. I think we're already behind the 8 ball as far as the development of classroom space and that sort of thing. We've already lost libraries because we needed additional classroom space. From my perspective, I think the idea that the board has got to be apprised on an ongoing basis as to what is the growth demographics and what types of new housing is coming in, a closer relationship between building inspectors and people who would be completely cognizant of the number of new housing developments and so forth has got to be a working part of the Board of Education. I think it's absolutely minimal and necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Mike Sullivan. Dr. Harrison Murray?
At this time, the public or myself have no pertinent facts on that question. We don't know what the plans are, we don't know what's projected, and I think it's silly to make any statements till we know the true facts.
Okay. Cheryl Holly?
I agree with Dr. Murray, and I'm under the understanding that there has been a needs survey done. I'm anxious to see it, and I'm anxious to talk with real estate agents in the area to see how they agree with it, compare with it, and what have you. The need is there, there's no question about it, but as to how big we have to build, would it be smarter to build a smaller situation and pay as we go, or project ahead and build something larger? Remains to be seen. We do know we have to build something.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl Holly. Tim Parsons?
I was at the presentations to the board regarding demographics and the plans that were drawn for the areas where the schools are going to build. I think that although it's been stated that the schools are truly needed and we should progress as rapidly as possible, I think we should take a little bit of time to allow people to become involved in the location of the schools, type of schools, and what particular facilities they may want to see in those schools.
Okay. Thank you, Tim Parsons. Kurt, do you wish another comment? No? Okay, let's continue. Paul Lester, your question will be directed to Bob Habig.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to continue in a somewhat related area, and that is to look at the manner in which the current board and administration has approached the problem. This might tie over to other problems that need to be resolved as well. But the district commissioned an outside study by a private consultant. Might a better approach have been to rely more on the resources that exist within the district, such as the planning boards, the town boards, and municipal officials, similar to what was done in the Minnesota Valley District in their efforts to determine whether they needed a new school.
unquestionably there absolutely should be more participation on the community's part. One of the things that disturbs me is that there are some telltale signs that this Board of Education and past Boards of Education are fully aware of. One, that the handicapped program that was started in 1976 was expanding, and therefore more classroom space will be needed. The state came down with remediation requirements, and additional classroom space was required. This Board of Education decreased class size. You can't decrease class size without making classroom space. And I think that there were a lot of telltale signs, and I think the board just waited too long. And I think that they should have had a committee back in 1982.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Habig, Mike Sullivan?
I think it's fairly obvious at this point that we are behind the 8 ball. Again, as I say, emphasize the fact that we're closing down libraries, and the loss of a library is more significant than just a kind of a nice aesthetic place for kids to look at books. The whole concept of source documentation and everything. We've lost the benefit of the libraries in our school district because we were unwilling or unable to plan for the development that was predicted by all sorts of resources. And certainly, we had the people within the Fort Jervis government, within the town of Deer Park government, who are literally handing out the licenses, who are literally telling us how many people are coming into the area, approving zoning districts. And that's it's apparent that we have to work more closely with the resources that are in the community. It's an easier process. We don't need to spend the money for basic types of fundamental research.
Okay, thank you, Mike Sullivan. Let's turn to Dr. Harrison Murray.
I'm going to suggest not only now, tonight again, but as I did at that previous meeting, suggest that the board appoint a citizens advisory committee immediately to study sites, size of buildings, locations, and types of buildings, and all details necessary as far as this new construction, which is way too late in coming. But I do think there's a definite need for an immediate appointment of a citizens advisory board and going out to the community through all available sources to pull together information that other agencies have already gathered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. Cheryl Holly?
Well, I don't really know, very honestly, how I feel about an advisory committee. I'd like to see what's going on, what's in the works, because I think sometimes an advisory committee can really bug up the works when you are in a time bind and everything else. I think if there are any real problems that arise within the membership of the board, that it's very easy to find an expert. I think I'd like to pass on that because I've worked as a board member with AHRC for 6 years when we were building. And we found many times some of the committees really bugged up the works. It's difficult. You want your community to become a part of it. But I really cannot sit here and say, yes, I think we should immediately form an advisory committee. I really don't know how I feel about that one at this point. I'd rather see what's happening first.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl Holly. Tim Parsons?
The current board has delayed, taken an inordinate amount of time in preparing for building this school. We should already be in building mode now. The opportunity has been there, always has been there, for the board to question people in the community, the parents, and yes, even the students, to get their ideas on what is necessary and what they would like to have in the school. As I've said, I believe this should be community participation in arranging for the new schools.
Thank you, Tim Parsons. Curtis Monson?
I don't think I could really say that having an outside study done was a bad idea. However, I do feel that a lot more input should have been taken from the community, both by the people doing the study and by the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you. Let's turn now to our next question. This is from Dave Gordon to be directed initially to Mike Sullivan.
Okay, Mike, we've just finished a lengthy contract dispute between the board and the teachers. Left scars. What would you do specifically to try to heal those scars? And do you feel that there should be different methods used in negotiating contracts in the future?
Well, I think the fact that there is an election, that there are 7 people who are out right now who are pro-education, I hope is a good signal to everybody in the district that there is a genuine attempt and there's a genuine charter by the people who are going to be elected to heal those scars that have been unnecessarily inflicted. I emphasize unnecessarily. It's just poor management and poor judgment in a lot of ways. As far as negotiations are concerned, I've been always a fan of the idea of last best offer. For example, if a union and a management is involved in negotiations, there are methods that are used that's called last best offer. We would cut off negotiations, for example, on 15 seconds. Last best offer, it's an idea where you're taking the last best offer from both sides, transcribing them, turning the choice over to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator would have the choice of choosing only which is the most appropriate, not a little bit from one side and a little bit from another. Very successful, very forthright, and solves a lot of disputes before they become disputes.
Okay, thank you, Mike Sullivan. Dr. Harrison Murray?
It's my understanding the contract is settled, it's over with, it's a matter of fact. Many of the details have not been published, and I see no reason in continually bringing up the subject, polarizing the community. We're in the process of forgetting it. Hopefully those who were involved in it on both sides learn something. As I said in my opening statement, there's a definite upbeat atmosphere amongst the teachers, and I think this is carried over into the community. Let's drop the subject of the contract.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. Cheryl Holly?
I usually agree with Dr. Murray, but this time I really don't. I feel that very strongly that this isn't just a recent scar. I think we've been licking our wounds in this district for 17 years. And I love I love your upbeat attitude. It's great. And I wish we could all feel that way. And I think for the most part, there are no real horrible enemies involved. It's just a situation where we're living in a poor community, and the community can do so much. We'd love to give our teachers exactly what they're worth, but it doesn't work that way. And I think there's some bitterness in that area. I mean, I could go on way beyond my time limit with this, but I do think that I remember very well the strikes 17 years ago. My husband was the attorney for the school board at that time. So it was very close to home. And it was a situation where I think we swept too much under the rug at that time, and it's been dragged on too long. I'm all for getting it out, and maybe even having good arguments, but let's get it out and get on with it, because we all love one another, basically.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl Holly. Tim Parsons?
The board has to be more open with the faculty, with the staff, the administration, and the people in the community. For too long, the board has hidden behind a wall of silence. They have not gotten information out to the community as well as possible. I think that the board must make known to the faculty, to the administration, that they are there to help them, that they are there to provide for the children. This information should be gotten out into the community, and there should be ways that the board can arrange through the administration to have the facts and the events published or made known to the community.
Okay, thank you, Tim Parsons. Let's turn to Curtis Bronson.
I think there certainly are some wounds that are going to have to be healed between the board, the administration, and the teachers. I don't think it's something that just time is going to heal. I think we're going to have to put forth some effort in showing the teachers that we're willing to take our task responsibly, and in showing them that we respect them for what they are, professionals.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Let's turn to Bob Having.
Kurt just used the word, professional. And that's what the teaching profession is. It's professional. And as long as we treat the teachers as professionals, I think we can have a great educational system. I think they demonstrated that during the conflict that we had over 2 years. With any contract negotiation, if you approach it with the thought that you're going to be open and honest with a high degree of integrity, that you want to be treated that way and you want to treat people that way, you can resolve any problem.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's turn now to Paul Lester for a question to be directed initially at Dr. Harrison Murray.
Well, the needs of all students in the Fort Jervis School District being adequately met, and I would include the gifted students, the learning disabled, the so-called average students, and if not, are there specific projects or programs that you intend to work for to improve that situation?
That's a good question. Yes, the answer is I'm going to try to work for many. Ever since the Committee on the Handicaps, which was mandated by the state about 5 years ago, I've been a member of that committee for the school district. So we have been working, I'm very closely involved in that. And as Bob Habig already stated, we have many classrooms are now used by the what are called resource rooms, where specialist teachers in teaching the handicapped, or as that term has been dropped now by the state, and they're all called learning disabled pupils. That program is well underway. The needs of the average student are met fairly well with one great exception, and that is on the subject of computers. And I could talk several hours on the question of need for more work on computers. One quick sentence. Just the other day, I heard where there are 2 colleges that are now requiring a person to have complete mastery of the computer in order to get his college degree.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. Let's turn to Cheryl Holly.
I would like to answer this very carefully, so could you run that by me again, please, Paul, if you don't mind?
Basically, I would like to know if you feel that the opportunities afforded to all categories of students, if there are such things as categories of students, the learning disabled, the average, the gifted students, are adequate at this time, or do you feel that special efforts should be made to improve that which is available in any of these particular areas?
Well, I believe that all children have a right to live up to their potential. And I do not believe this is happening in our area. No, I don't. I feel I have some very lofty ideas about gifted students. I think there's a lot of creativity being stifled. I don't know what the answer to that is. I think they'll get along famously one way or the other, but I think we're wasting a lot of potential in that area. In relation to our state-mandated programs, I think I'm a very good judge of them. In as much as I have had a child who went through a resource room program, I was totally dissatisfied, not throughout the course, but he had one teacher who was excellent, who was devoted. He had another teacher who was not, and the resource room is only as good as the teacher in it.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl Holly. Let's turn to Tim Parsons.
We definitely need to have established a program for the gifted children. Currently, there is a committee organized that will address this problem. It would be a slow and tedious process. I would like to see the program go in as rapidly as possible for the gifted children. On the exceptional children, I think that the system is only doing the bare minimum that is absolutely required by the state. I think we should be putting a greater emphasis for the exceptional children. There's a large group of children who basically get ignored because of lack of resources available in our community. Those are the children who, for one reason or another, do not develop at the same rate as other kids, and they run into frustration by constant failure and to a point where they give up. I think remedial education in the elementary level should be increased so that those children can be given an opportunity to succeed, and perhaps through the remainder of their school years they will be able to enjoy accomplishment and will not become dropouts.
Okay, thank you, Tim Parsons. Let's turn to Curtis Bronson.
Well, our school district has taken on the task of buying quite a quantity of computers for use by the children. However, many of these computers go unused simply because there isn't enough short of the needs in terms of gifted children, and I do think that there are some problems with how we deal with emotionally handicapped children.
Okay, thank you. Good. Let's turn to Bob Habig.
Question is, do we feel that the needs of the students are being met? I have my own opinions. I would say no, they're not. Not because the professional are not trying to meet the students' needs, but I think that we, as individuals, really can't answer it. I think we've got to leave that up to the professionals. I think the professionals have to set the program, and the Board of Education has to set the policy to implement that program. And I would set, if I'm elected, I would help set the policy to achieve that goal.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Mike Sullivan?
I think there are several areas. There's one area that I particularly have a fondness for is the idea of applied economics. The idea of giving students the exposure to the idea of what jobs are asking from them and what it's like to be working outside. It's a very big area. It's an area that typically we do a poor job on simply because of the logistics. I think we have to start devoting some resources in that particular area. Another thing that we have to start looking at is raising the profile of academics. We're a terrific sports community, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to do something better as far as raising the profile of people who are academic stars also. I think we're going to have to start thinking about full-day kindergarten. Certainly, absolutely and totally a computer profession. There's no question about it. We're wasting time. We're going to have to deal with the gifted. And there's even one other area that I'm starting to hear more and more about. That's the idea of a mechanism to deal with counseling. We've got a lot of problem kids who are going through home situations that are horrendous. We have to deal with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Let's turn back now to David Gordon. And Dave, your question should be directed initially to Cheryl Holland.
Cheryl, the present board is in the process of selecting a school superintendent. Do you feel that, two-pronged question. First of all, do you feel that their process that they're using to select a superintendent is one that you would favor if you were on the board? And secondly, what do you think is the proper relationship between a board and the superintendent?
In answer to your first question, I do not know how they're selecting them. I believe they are interviewing at this current time. Now, what do you mean? Do I go along with how they are doing it? I think there's only one way to interview people. You bring them in, talk to them, and evaluate them. Depends on what you're looking for and what the needs of the community are. And I think we have got to have a humdinger at this point. So you got to have a very strong man. Now, the second part of your question was?
What do you feel is the proper relationship between a board and a school superintendent?
I believe that there has to be an atmosphere of fairness in any relationship with our teachers, with our principals, and with our superintendents. But I believe that we have to demand a great deal of strength. We have to find a man who is going to make our principals have backbones. And I believe that we have to leave a lot up to him, except for one area. And I think when a person, a parent and a child have a problem, they go through the chain of command. I believe it's time then for the board to get involved and not just leave it up to a stacked deck.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Let's turn to Tim Parsons.
The selection of the new superintendent, the selection committee should have as part of their membership teachers and people from the community. The school is not the board's property. The school belongs to the district. And the running of that school is a very important aspect of the community. The proper running of that school, should the people in the community, the teachers who are going to be directly affected, should have an opportunity to have a voice in selection of the superintendent. The board should not be a puppet master. The superintendent should be his own man, should be given the responsibility and the authority to run the district. The superintendent is the trained professional. The people on the board, they will be very educated. They are not educated in the operation of the school district, and they should not attempt to operations. They should set policy only. If the individual that they have selected to run their district is not living up to their expectations, then they have every right to get rid of that.
Thank you, Tim, and let's turn to Curtis Bronson.
I would agree that we should probably have more people than just the board involved in the selection of a superintendent. However, I don't know how many people you want to get involved, because that would just create more controversy and more infighting, perhaps. As far as the superintendent's duties, I would agree with Tim in that the superintendent should be given basically a free hand to run the system. The board is there to set the policy, and the superintendent is there to carry out that policy. If the superintendent doesn't carry out the policy, then the board should take action on it. But otherwise, he should be running the district. That's what he's hired for, and they're well paid to do it.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Let's turn to Bob Habeck.
When I was interviewed, when I started to run for the Board of Education this time, I was asked a question about the superintendency and selection, and I said at that time, the board should make the selection because they've done the interviews. The situation has changed. I've changed my mind. I think the community has been left out. The professional staff has been left out. I think the administrators have been left out. And I think the decision is too great to leave these people totally out in the cold. I think the board ought to start over. The superintendent of schools runs the school district. He should have the support of the Board of Education, the teaching profession, and the community. Any administrator must set goals. And those goals have to be conveyed to all those people that care, so they know what the agenda is. If you don't know what the agenda is, you're not going to be able to work within the system. And I say that any superintendent must set that agenda for all of us.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's turn to Mike Sullivan.
I think there's an issue here that's really missing in the selection process, and the thing that's missing is the idea of the mission. What are you going to tell this person, man or woman, whoever comes to fill that particular role? And the question is, what are we going to be? Do we want to be a district that's going to be a no-frill school? Do we want to be a district that's going to build up its academic standards? We have not defined those yet. And for that reason, I think the selection process is missing something that's integral and very important. Regarding the relationship between the board and the superintendent, there's always an argument between control and autonomy. And I think one of the things that's happened in the past board has been a tremendous over-emphasis on the idea of control. You operate within this box, and if you go outside of that box, we're going to nail you. Well, I want to say that if I was ever on the board, one of the messages I'd like to be able to send to the superintendent is, I want you to be innovative. I want you to start thinking about things that we're not talking about.